have you found positive in the contact process? Apart from the few people we have met and seen, I have nothing positive to add about the contact itself. In the process, we have found very noble and interesting people. The project First Contact was a success from the point of view of the information received from it by us and by the Federation. But what we have found as general data about the universal human population, and I do not speak of individuals here, is that everything is quite discouraging. An individual person may be or is very awake, but generally, as a race, you are not. I do not see mass contact viable. The people with whom you have spoken in this phase, were they people from the spiritual and ufological world or from any area of life? People who never knew about UFOs too? Because I imagine the results will depend on that. From any point or activity in life. Normal people with normal lives around the world, with emphasis on Latin America and Russia mainly. How could you make the more direct contact with humanity, given that it cannot be through politicians and religious leaders? Given the difficulties of social networks, how could the mass contact be made with the human population? This is a part of the problem due to which I do not see a mass contact viable at the moment. Because not only are you not prepared for such contact as race or culture, but that same lack of preparation prevents you from having the means for that. Mass contact could not occur through individual means, and your case demonstrates what transpires, or because the media is controlled by the government. You and your channels were not the ideal means for us to make ourselves known, but because there is no ideal means, not for anything else. It is said that if we were real, we would contact people with more rank, credibility, importance, or whatever than you two. This concept is hard for me to understand from a human point of view. There is no ideal medium. There is no ideal way for us to make ourselves known. The very nature of people's mentality is what limits the means as well. Therefore, no one specific means can present this information. And in the case of making the contact known through governments, it is also not viable because they do not cooperate with us. They follow their own agendas, and making ourselves known is contrary to their agendas. There is no way for mass contact to occur. How could the population be prepared for contact, or does one have to prepare in case of contact? There is no preparation as an isolated protocol for contact. It implies a spiritual and awareness growth that has not yet been demonstrated by the general population. Everything goes hand in hand, and you can observe this yourselves with regards to how badly you refer one to another. We arrived here under the premise that humans were being invaded by an unjustly regressive race, and that such invasion violated a long list of laws and rules of interaction between races. Therefore, humans should be helped. But in reality, with what we find in analyzing the situation carefully and already here, it is that this invasion of regressives has occurred not by one or two specific races, but by a whole multitude of races and regressive entities. When studying why this mass invasion has occurred, we have found that the specific reason is that it is the humans themselves who are generating the problem, and the multitude of regressive races present here are only opportunistic entities that exploit for their own benefit the situation in which they are, and the situation generated by the humans themselves. We have found that if humans have a confused, schizophrenic mind, full of problems, resentments, and prejudices, and they cannot leave their own redundant thinking schemes that lead them nowhere, they can only generate an equally schizophrenic, turbulent, and regressive society. It is like a series of bacteria that attack a body as opportunists, because that body is weak for other reasons. I understand you, Swaruu, and I see it from your perspective. I do not want to justify humans. But, on the other hand, the issue goes straight into my heart, and I cannot not answer. If humans, as you said, are generating the problem, it is because what is causing us the problem was inserted in a way in our minds. We carry a lot of trauma, pain, manipulation, and fear, and these have not generated themselves on their own. Just look at the story of Atlantis, Lemuria, and others. We were the Lyrians before, and we did not have this problem before here, generating the evil in which we are now. We were surrounded by evil and manipulation. We fell into the trap. So we cannot be accused of being the only culprits, I think. There were, and there are, other accomplices here. Imagine if those invasions, reptiles, 3D Matrix had never happened. The Lyrians would have developed another way. I am sure of this. But those who generate the Matrix are humans, not the regressive entities or the archons. Humans have made the environment conducive to the development of these regressive opportunistic entities on Earth. And with that, a vicious circle is created, where opportunistic entities will move things at their convenience to prevent humanity from being free from them, because they are in a comfortable environment. It is a vicious circle. But basically, the cause is the humans themselves and their attitudes as a culture, race, or species. Therefore, it is only or can only be them who can apply the permanent solution. Robert. Evil is growing exponentially on Earth, making people not wake up or not have a hint of hope to get out of all this. I think that in this exceptional case, it has to be treated exceptionally. Gosia. The 3D matrix suppression. The humans have not set it up. Humans cannot be really blamed because they are weak, when the same suppression that the Federation has placed makes them weaker and weaker, and where they are surrounded by parasites. We are weak because we have much more against us to be strong. I'm sorry, but I just feel a lot of passion for humanity. I despise regressive reptiles and what they are doing. And if we are weak, it is due to many factors to which we were exposed over thousands of years. All this has made us very weak. I do not say this so you can do everything for us, of course. We have to wake up and get out of the victim mode, recreate and rediscover ourselves. But you also have to understand why we have become weak and have compassion. There is another problem here that has not been mentioned, and it is related. Why stellar races do not show themselves overall. One more reason. There is no clear demarcation between where humanity ends and where the stellar races begin. They are intertwined, interwoven, and this causes even more problems of understanding than what is happening from the perspective of the average minds of the Earth. This also means, and that by logic, that the problems generated by humans that cause the right circumstances to house the opportunistic regressive races are also due to or also rooted in problems of other star races that their starseeds themselves have imported to Earth, creating with it a great soup of confusion and collective schizophrenia, reflected in an equally confusing and schizophrenic society. Wow, I have never considered that. So the situation here is everyone's problem. Yes, there is no clear boundary or border between species. Everything is intertwined. That is why humans do not easily understand the concept of what it is to be an extraterrestrial or not. There I was in ancient times, and there were souls there that now live elsewhere or on Earth. Everything is intertwined. Your Earth problems are our problems too. If countless star races go down there to get to experience what it is like to be a human being living on Earth, of course the result is a whole confusing mess. Here at least we know who is who, and so we respect each other. Down there, you don't know who is who, and everyone wants to impose their points of view and their values. Yes, and because of the veil of forgetfulness that has been imposed on us too, no one knows who she or he is. It contributes more to the confusion. Humans are brave, and we do what we can with the little understanding we have, because the rest of that understanding has been taken away from us. The reason why the human being is as it is not only due to mixed up values or all kinds of different races down there. It is also because most of the primordial humans, those who have been human for a long time, have suffered trauma after trauma at terrible levels, from floods to changes in Earth's polarity. A flood trauma is overcome with time, but a change in planetary polarity means that rocks the size of mountains fly through the air. This has caused schizophrenia in human minds. I support here the concept that the ego is the result of a great trauma that results in the destruction or dissolution of the I, and therefore humans spend their life searching for the meaning of life, its other half, to explain what they are, because it has been fragmented into two, the ego and the unconscious. Only with the link one to the other, or the amalgamation of both, can you enter into or generate or recover the self. Another thing here. The human being as a race will do the impossible to avoid facing its own shadows. These are your shadows. The reason why this society does not advance is due to the internal denial that each one of you have when facing your unconscious. That is what I see, and I come here to say what I see, not to be popular. Another example. If you already consider yourself awake to what is happening in the world, that the population, transhumanism, mass control and population engineering agendas, why do most of you still go to the store and buy your transgenic Doritos nachos and your Coca-Cola and sit down to watch your Facebook on your new 5G radioactive mobile? Humans themselves have more control over what they do than they think. Don't blame reptiles and that's it. You are your own tyrants. Robert: I think the problem is that the matrix, or this mind control, doesn't let us make the right decisions. It pulls us into deeper and deeper parts of the well, intellectually, spiritually speaking. A vicious circle. That is why we cannot blame it only on the humans, I think. Not that you are doing that. If it were so, we would not be here talking. We are not the only accomplices here. This is my point. One thing is mass contact, another is to continue to assist us in other ways, to monitor the situation. I do not say you are the only ones to blame, but as I said, everything is intertwined with other races. Humans are the stellars. The stellars are the humans. Their lives are designed before entering. Therefore, it is your disaster to clean up. Because they openly say and demonstrate that this disaster is what they want to experience. Those who get tired of the disaster do not return there. It is your own decision, has nothing to do with archons forcing you to reincarnate. Everything is generated in your own heads. It is only mind control. You yourselves want to reincarnate. Let's see if this time I can buy that red Ferrari that I couldn't in my previous incarnation. I am not saying that there are no positive aspects about the humans, because there are, and because they are a total mixture of countless races too. But I don't talk about good things here. I am focusing on the problem. And about the veil of forgetfulness, this is due to the operation or the basic dynamics of the laws of magnetic frequencies, not to any technology or to any agenda. It's just that a high frequency is not compatible with the low frequency of 3D. This mechanism of the veil of forgetfulness is exactly the same mechanism by which you forget your dreams too when sleeping. You don't need to remember who you were before. With what you know you want for yourself today, it's enough to do something about it. The human being tends to stagnate. Until about 130 years ago, the main means of transportation was the horse. Today you are, or still continue to be, dealing with the internal combustion piston engine. You stay comfortable, and with that you are permissive of negative interests of the suppression of technologies. Just because you feel you are victims, which I do not doubt that you are, it does not mean that you should depend on other races to save you. It is your responsibility. Do something about it. Do not wait for mass ascension or mass arrests of corrupt politicians. Do something today, each of you. And small things do not exist. Any action, however small, causes a great change. And look at me here thinking that we have changed a lot technologically in the last 100 years. From my point of view, you have not advanced much, Gosha. It is only a matter of comparative point of view. I do not see much difference between a 1922 Ford Model T and a 2019 Ford Edge model. Actually, I see the 1922 Ford T model better in many ways versus the Ford Edge 2019. Why this need to increase the complexity of a vehicle to the level where it is no longer possible to repair it? You also continue to use radio and microwaves. Gosha, I understand why you want to protect humans, but this way you are only protecting the victim mentality. Someone has to tell them to get up from their comfortable chairs and start to do something about the problem. I do not doubt that you are victims. Of course you are. But what will you do about it today? Nobody is telling you these things enough. Someone has to come and say it, whether you like it or not. And that is also helping. And I am not talking about individual people here, because there are very valuable people, and lots of them there. I talk about humanity in general. And I also talk about what each one of you can do. There are no small things. Everything, even the smallest action, brings great changes. Robert. It seems that many Taygetans participated in the project First Contact. Why is it that now that participation is less? I am talking about the Taygetans because you are most similar to us. Was it because of disinterest? We are not the only race similar to you. Many races participated. It is just that at the time, the attack force of the Federation for the Liberation of the Earth was under the command of Taygetan, under Asket and Rachel of Temer, with all the others coordinating them. Now it's Centauri. This participation is not given today primarily because the project First Contact ended more or less by November 2016. The purpose or end goal of that project was already accomplished. For complex reasons, the Taygetan race has been withdrawing its communication presence from around the Earth, mostly because of the lack of interest caused by lack of results and the change in perspective about what is really happening on Earth. Change of invasion of regressive races to problems generated internally by humans themselves. And because we have asked ourselves why allocate so much effort and so many resources to a large fleet of Taygetan ships that mostly just are in orbit doing nothing. And as I said, or because of me as Swaruu, Taygeta's presence here in Earth orbit has now been reduced to a single ship. In my opinion, we do not need more than one ship. And also because today there are only about 10 people that talk to or can contact people, leaving mostly everything to only 2 people, Aneka and me. You said that most are not ready for mass contact. What do you plan to do then with the 1,000 of us that are and are asking for it with such an anticipation and yearning? With the limitations about which we may or may not agree, help you with what we can. Even so, making you understand that you must trust yourselves, trust your judgment, and move forward without direct contact, because it is not necessary. It even results being invasive and sometimes has negative effects on the contactees themselves. You ought to understand that the ETs are yourselves. You do not need us. There is already enough down there on the internet and in the books. With your own intelligence that is not small, you can reach your own truth, and it is as valid as that of ours here. You cannot depend on contact. Are other races also doing their studies? Do they agree with your conclusions? Do they have the same data? Yes, each race does its studies. We are not the only one. Among the more active ones on the internet, and in addition to us, are the Engan, the Solatians, the Ummo, and the Sasani. Each in its own manner, but they are in mass in social networks right now. We are a very small minority, right now basically only 2. And unfortunately, yes, Gosha, they agree. I have already shared this in the Federation Council on the Andromedan ship, with full acceptance. Several of these races, mentioning Engan and Solation especially, are in the social networks, have data, and have reached the same conclusions as us Taygetans. And why do they continue the contact in social networks then? Why don't they retire like you? What are they still trying to achieve? Their agendas are not so much of control, or they are not of control. They are to understand the society and to obtain metadata in order to formulate an idea or a plan of assistance if possible. But the metadata are not encouraging. How is the ascension and energy that comes from the center of the galaxy related to the subject of direct contact? Ascension, as I have explained before, is an individual process. With more awareness comes more perception of other realities that were previously beyond the reach of the individual. More awareness as an assimilation, not so much accumulation, of understanding in general. The accumulation of data serves and is part of the process, but loose data is of no use if it is not processed and integrated into the values and life and thought understanding of the individual. A pen drive with 32 gigabytes of information, for example, is not more conscious than one with 8 gigabytes. However, a person would be more aware when studying the 32 gigabytes of data from the first one than by only studying the 8 gigabytes of the second one. taking as a premise that they contain relevant data of the same type. The energy that comes from the center of the galaxy is something normal in terms of spatial energy dynamics, because space is not a vacuum, it is a medium, and what happens in other parts of the galaxy affects all other places. Just as waves in a pond of water that emanate from a point and then spread until they touch all the points of all its banks, and everything that is in contact with the water. While ascension is a personal process, it can be given or occurs completely independently of this energy from the center of the galaxy. However, the fact that the frequencies that determine the existential densities rise helps or undeniably promotes the process of personal ascension, since both processes, the personal work and the progressively higher frequency, bring with it greater capacity to perceive realities previously outside the reach of the individual. Swaruu, if it were not for this energy that comes from the center of the galaxy, would you have come, or would you have left us alone? The knowledge we have come to have as a race about the arrival of energy waves from the center of the galaxy to Earth was a factor for the fleet to come here at this time. However, there are other social and political factors that led to a specific situation on Earth that determined that we should come to assist now, and that for us has greater weight than the very positronic waves from the center of the galaxy. But it all comes together. So you are not here just because of what might happen if the Van Allen belts evaporate due to this energy. Yes, controlling the progressive collapse of the Van Allen belts is an important factor that forms one of the mission parameters. What sustains the belt is a mechanism depending on very old nuclear reactors. They could fail suddenly with subsequent undesired consequences. The fact that nuclear reactors based on enriched uranium have been used, very similar to those used on Earth, and not of more advanced systems, is because it is assumed that if nobody attends to them and maintains them, by themselves they would progressively shut down, slowly releasing the Earth from the Van Allen belt. This would not be possible using zero-point energy reactors. Even so, a controlled collapse is preferred, and not leaving the process left to chance, only as a result of the progressive failure of ancient energy mechanisms. Okay, another question. You said that you have discovered that people are more matrix than you imagined, not being suitable for direct contact. But if you let me go back to this for the moment, if we are so matrixed, it is because we are very well manipulated. The Cabal has us in their grip. And I feel that this is why you cannot leave us, those lost souls, in the hands of controllers. Abandon us in this predicament, because we will only fall more and more, the same as the organism that becomes infested by all kinds of parasites, becoming weaker and weaker. If you are not yet ready for the official contact, are you going to continue helping us, even if it's not with the direct contact? Yes, but my conclusion is that help and awareness must come from the other side, via changes within the prenatal agreements. However, that is complicated, because you are immersed in your own thought loops, in your vicious circles. The Cabal and corrupt governments are the product of the same people. They reflect you and they come from you. The people have the governments they deserve. It goes hand in hand. The amount of government is inversely proportional to the level of consciousness of a people. I understand. So for now, the ideas of officially becoming known in the 2020, for example, or 2025, are not on the agenda anymore. They are no longer on the agenda for the moment, no. If it happens, it will not be us or the Federation. Although we never tie ourselves to a conclusion or specific data, we always change and evolve. It is part of the nature of a thinking being. Nothing is fixed, so this does not mean that things might not change and the contact is made. But with the data we have, is not favorable.